everyone, we are from Group 6 and today we will be explaining about how to understand the diversity. We live in a beautiful world, full of diversity. All people come from different background and culture. While we are living, we carry cultures in our blood. But do we know exactly what is culture? Culture is learned patterns of perceptions, values, and behaviors shared by a group of people that are dynamic and heterogeneous. And within cultures, we shared some values together. Values are shared ideas on what is good and what is bad. We learn about values since our childhood, which influence on how we view our environment, people around us, and of course the world. And that values will be the standard to judge whether something is right or something is wrong. Cultural values are the core principles, ideals, and health standards of what is acceptable or unacceptable in a community or society. All people have different cultural values, starting with what values they learn in their family, their tribe, society, and country. Our cultural values could be different from others' cultural values. This indirectly separates us into groups, where people with the same cultural values and perspective will stick together, and those who share different values will not be accepted in that particular group. Those who belong in the same group are called as in-groups, and those who are not are the out-group. And of course, people will treat the in-groups and the out-group differently, to the point where sometimes it's not fair. To help us understand and compare the difference between other society, we need the help of cultural pattern. In cultural pattern, we can see how a society perceives their equality between women and men, and also between their bosses and their workers. Cultural patterns also help us see their group allegiance, how their members stay true and loyal to their society. With the help of cultural patterns, we can also see their competitiveness versus their cooperation. Cultural patterns also help us see how a society deals with a unknown. Some society accept it and some completely refuse it. Last but not least, cultural patterns also help us analyze a society perception of time. Some value time and stay on time, but some may be told. And now, if you already understand the 5 of the cultural patterns, you can easily understand and compare the differences of societies. And the last thing you need to understand other culture is the Hofstede Cultural Dimension Model. In the end of 1970, Dr. Geert Hofstede published the Hofstede Cultural Dimensions Model. Here, he identified 6 dimensions that can distinguish one culture to another. The first one is Power Distance Index. These dimensions measure how the power is distributed. Is it equal or not? The country with the lowest power distance is Austria, and the country with the highest power distance the second one is individualism versus collectivism. With this dimension, we can see how each individual is integrated into groups. Ghana is one of the most collectivist countries in the world, meanwhile America is the most individualist country. The third one is masculinity and femininity. These dimensions measure how the country distributes the role between genders. Here, Sweden promotes more of a femininity value, where Japan promotes more of masculine value. And the fourth one is Uncertainty Avoidance Index. This dimension measures how a country open to changes. Here, Mexico is more conservative than Singapore in receiving influence from other culture. The next one is long-term and short-term dimension. Here, Canada and Thailand both use a long-term dimension. And finally, the last dimension is indulgence versus restraint. Indulgent societies allow relatively free gratification, while restraint societies suppress it. In the restraint category, we have China, and in the indulgent category, we have Venezuela. If you can understand and analyze this cultural dimensions model, you can easily understand the differences between other cultures. If we can understand the theories of cultural values, cultural patterns, and the Hofstede dimension models, we can easily live together along with other culture. Thank you very much. That's all from Group 6.